Hi there, welcome to the NBA DFS build. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We're going to go over the 5-game DraftKings slate for Tuesday, January 23rd. Our process here is to break down each game, point you to the top plays, best values, maybe even tell you who we're fading, and hopefully that helps you build either a bunch of good lineups or one great lineup for a single entry. For today, we're going to start with the Nuggets at the Pacers. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. If we help you at all, please like this video and also subscribe to the channel so you get in the loop for future videos. All right, let's get it going here right away. Denver at Pacers. The Nuggets are actually 5-point road favorites because Tyrese Haliburton has been ruled out already. Healthy 239 total, so this already looks pretty appealing. Taylor, who do you like on the Denver side to start it off?
Well, at first glance, it looks like a weirdly short spread. 5.5 with no Haliburton seems weird to me. Denver's quite good. They're, from what I understand, fully healthy. Jokic at 11-2 is underpriced. Indiana allows the most points in the paint. Jokic finally kind of showed a ceiling the other night in a similar matchup against the Wizards, so happy to get to him where I can. I don't think that ownership 13.9% is going to hold. I would imagine he'll be chalkier than that on a short slate, but he looks good. Jamal Murray, same situation. Never really seems to get much more expensive. Indiana's been a bad defense all year. Fast-paced game suits him well. Ditto for Aaron Gordon. Sub 6K is pretty interesting. MPJ looks a little pricey. I prefer Gordon between the two, but yeah, especially if their ownerships are going to be similar, I just think Gordon's probably a better play overall. KCP, small slate type of value, and Reggie Jackson, as always, I'm happy to fade.
Can't disagree with any of that at all. Jokic obviously looks awesome. Since we're a little bit light on value here, you could look at Reggie Jackson at 4.1. Doesn't feel good, but he's there. I am with you on the spread. It's a little odd that it's only at 5 points. That's where it was this morning when I started, when I first looked at the slate, and it hasn't moved at all even after Haliburton was officially, ruled out of this game. So I guess they do have Siakam there, and they have everybody else, but a little bit strange to me. So I don't know what we can glean from that, but if it's supposed to be close, do you like anybody on the Pacers side?
Yeah. No Haliburton means, I guess, McConnell could start again. Not sure what's up with his minutes. Only played 11 the other night in his start against Phoenix. Not sure if he had fouls or what exactly was going on there, but Nembhard was back, so he's not going to get a ton of minutes even with Haliburton out, but I have interest in McConnell, assuming he starts again 5-5. I think there's some meat on the bone there with him. The minutes are volatile, but don't really trust the projection necessarily. Miles Turner for 6'4" looks pretty good. Foul trouble risk against Jokic, but 6'4" is the cheapest he's been in quite some time, I think. He's been pretty good even with Siakam there. Siakam himself, sub 8K, looks decent. Not the best start for him with Indiana, but should get plenty of minutes, should be the usage leader you would think with this team. And I can't really get too excited about the shooters, Mathurin, Buddy Hield, Nembhard types, but I get it. Short slate. There's, usage to be had here. I just don't know where it's going to go, really.
Yeah, Siakam kind of being there a little bit counters Haliburton being out and kind of makes it a little bit murky. Miles Turner's price is nice, though. I'm with you there. The only problem is Jokic is not a fun draw. And the weird thing is these guys are picking up ownership. Mathurin, Hield, Miles, they're all 11, 12, 13% here. So, people, maybe it's the tight spread or just Haliburton being out, but the Pacers are going to be looked at here in tournaments. I would imagine these projections across the board see quite a spike, though, because they haven't been updated yet. McConnell at 16 minutes, I don't really know if I buy that. Nembhard's actually questionable, too. So if Nembhard, I don't know if that's been updated. but the last I saw, he was questionable. So if he's out, then McConnell looks even better. Obviously, 5.5K. I'd imagine he starts. And I think he's in play anyways, just because he should get some minutes here. But yeah, it's just once again, it's all spread out with Indy. I do like Mathurin. I like the price on Mathurin. A few games ago, he had a really big game with Halliburton out. I do worry a little bit that Siakam's presence kind of cuts into anybody else's upside here, but he's probably my favorite pacer. In general, I mean, it is what it is. This game, if it actually stays close, this game is very appealing, especially if you're going to pay for Jokic. You can run it back with a couple different pacers here. Moving on, the Knicks are taking on the Nets in Brooklyn. It is a 4.5-point spread with the Knicks favored as the road team, and it's a 223 total. So not quite as appealing as the previous game's total, but pretty similar spread, and it looks like we could look to this game for some pieces. Starting on the Knicks side, who stands out?
Everyone, because they all look a little too cheap, like they always seem to. Randall and Brunson, well under 9K now, makes little sense to me. Brooklyn's not a very good defensive team. No Ben Simmons doesn't help them on that end. Good spot for Brunson in particular. Hartenstein not expected to play. Jericho Sims is probably going to start, but between the two bigs, I think I prefer Precious. Power forward eligibility is helpful on DK. Center's pretty deep, especially with value guys. We've seen Sims start before and not even crack 20 minutes. Precious, I think you noted privately to me earlier that he played 25 minutes in the last game, 24 minutes. He shot 9 for 10 and grabbed 11 rebounds, but I think Tibbs likes that kind of thing. I think he will notice that. I think Sims has a path to being like a fake starter type. So I'm probably all aboard the Achua bandwagon. I do think he'll be more owned than his ownership currently reflects, but I'm highly interested in that. I think Sims, low floor, center only. He's cheap, but kind of hard for me to get too excited for that. And then Anunoby is another guy. He hasn't been like good per minute since he went to New York, but the minutes have been there. He played 43 plus in 3 of the last 4 games. 36 in the last one. That's kind of his floor if the game stays close. I think he's a good kind of mid-range value.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Julius and Brunson, per usual, look great. They project for the same amount of minutes and fantasy points every friggin' slate, and the Nets are not scary at all. They do project to be owned, but not crazy owned. So 13 to 17% looks pretty good to me. I would just be indifferent on how I feel about the ownership. They're good plays, and their prices haven't gone up either. So yeah, they look good. OG is a pretty good mid-range value here based off of minutes. His projection's pretty but he's not going to be over-owned, and he's going to play a crap ton of minutes. So if he's your last guy in, or just somebody who you just want a decent floor here, OG looks pretty good. I'm less interested in DiVincenzo at basically the same price, just because Josh Hart is fully healthy at this point, and I just think they're going to split the minutes. Precious, loving Precious. So I will note one other thing is he has power forward eligibility, so you do not have to just rely on him, eating up a center spot. There's a lot of good centers on this slate. Obviously, started with Jokic, so you can just slide him in at power forward or forward, and get the job done for their really good value. I'm on board with you here. Jericho Sims looks like a trap. On the other side of this game, the Nets start us off with Nick Claxton up top with a projection of 38 fantasy points. He projects to be rather owned because he's only 6.8K, and he's been kind of crushing. And obviously, he'll be going up against Jericho Sims and Precious Achua, so it's not really a formidable matchup for him. Starting with him and any other Brooklyn guys, who do you like here?
Yeah, he's clearly the standout. This team doesn't really have many others, honestly. I think Dinwiddie's okay for 5,600. That's pretty cheap for him. He was like 8K maybe a couple months ago. He's not been very good. His minutes have not been as reliable over the last couple weeks, but that salary is kind of hard to ignore. And he does have upside. If he's playing well, the minutes could come up. Bridges, Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, okay. Like Bridges has a really high minutes floor as well, kind of like Anunoby. But I do imagine these guys are probably going to guard each other, which does kind of make both of them look a little worse. In theory, I mean, I guess Bridges could be on Brunson or something, but Bridges is never the most comfortable spendy type. He's pretty scoring dependent overall. Yeah, it's really just Claxton and Dinwiddie. I don't have a ton of interest in anybody else.
Yeah, these guys feel very much like last guy in, or if you're just looking for a mid-range value, or just to get different, a GPP dart outside of Claxton, who seems like he's chalky right now. Yeah, I don't have a really heavy lean. I don't think anybody stands out. I think Claxton is an okay play, and anybody else, you're just kind of hoping they pay out. Hopefully they pan out for you. Next game, we got Blazers at OKC. The Blazers are massive 13.5-point dogs on the road, which makes sense because they get housed regularly, and OKC is pretty good. It's also 234.5 total, so if this game stays close, we actually could be looking at a pretty underrated DFS environment. Starting with the Blazers, who nobody projects well, like really well anyways. Who are you liking here? I'm assuming nobody.
Yeah, I think this was the exact same spot Portland at OKC like 2 weeks ago when Portland lost by 60.
Yay!
A similar result honestly wouldn't be shocking. So no one except Brogdon's getting owned. I think that's correct. Simons is affordable for Simons. Like if you can trust the game to stay close, I guess I see the merit to looking his way kind of as a low on pivot in an otherwise chalky build. I guess you can make a similar case for Ayton, but it's grim. Brogdon looks okay, but prices come up. He's likely the first to hit the bench if the game does blow out. So not a lot of paths here with Portland. I don't really trust them to not to get their asses kicked.
Yeah, I think the blowout thing is the main deterrent for us here. Simons has a good price, projection not so much, despite good projected minutes. So it's not a good matchup. It's a bad matchup on the road, and the spread is awful. Brogdon possibly being chalky makes me think that could be a good fade. It's not like he's super cheap anymore, 6.5K. I know Shadon Sharp is still out, but Simons is now back at full strength. I think he missed 1 or 2 games recently, so that might play into a couple of those games where Brogdon kind of went nuts. And he's just not projecting like that smash play like he had been. I do like the price on DeAndre Ayton.
Max player.
What?
Max player DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, now that his path to the stadium is thawed. Did you
see that quote?
No.
They asked him about being on a rebuilding team, and he was like, I'm a max player, and I'm going to stay a max player. Like, oh, I don't think you are, and I don't think you will.
Well, maybe he proves it tonight. You never know. No, but yeah, I like his price, but I'm not really loving the projection. So I'm pretty much with you here. I'm probably not going here. Unless I find myself really paying up for like Thunder guys, I might do a run back, but that's about it. Speaking of Thunder, they obviously project pretty well in theory if the game doesn't blow out. SGA leads the way with a 56-point fantasy projection. He also looks rather chalky with 34% expected ownership, which, as we know, probably will only grow. Starting with SGA, who do you like for the Thunder?
Yeah, once again, like these guys are all too cheap. Jalen Williams, 6'7", Chet, 7'1". Even Dort for sub 5K, I think is interesting. The blowout is obviously a concern, but at least OKC should be on the winning side of it. It's going to be hard to get away from J-Dub. He's been really good. Very good per minute. Minutes have been there. Similar thing with Chet. Like the Blazers have been so bad in the paint, defending it in particular. 7-1 is the cheapest he's been in a while too. Let's see. Last time he was this cheap was November 1st. I don't understand that really. So happy to get to him. Not really concerned about the ownership on that. And SGA 10K flat, just too cheap for who SGA is. This slate doesn't have a ton of awesome spends beyond like Jokic and AD. So I think SGA as a spend, even at ownership, is very viable.
Yeah, I like you said in a past video, we can't really play for blowouts. I think it's always worth mentioning the blowouts just for the context of what we're talking about. But SGA is such a good play on this slate, so I totally understand the ownership, and I'm not going to like pull the fade card just because he's chalky. If I do end up fading him, it's only going to be because I'm prioritizing Anthony Davis or Jokic over him. That'd be the reason. Um, As for the rest of these guys, yeah, Jalen Williams looks awesome. Dort always makes me queasy, but he's going to play 30-plus minutes. And he can pop off. He's an okay GPP play. Doesn't look like he's going to pick up much ownership. Chet is the guy here that I like the most, though. He's had like a pretty rough string of like 6 straight games where the matchups were either or pretty brutal. So like one of the last times we saw him in a really good spot, he put up 49 fantasy points against the Wizards. So like anytime you see Chet in a smash spot where they do not defend inside very well, Holmgren is looking good to me. And 7-1 is just super, super cheap. So I might end up making him part of my core when it's all said and done. And I feel like his projection is a little bit low here.
Agreed.
I will say I'm not giddy about Giddy. Okay.
Because you're not a tween.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Shots fired. Yeah. I know, but I mean, I like his skill set. I like his price. His minutes are just all over the place. So I also want to note that I'm not really feeling that. Next game, we got Utah visiting the Pelicans. The Pelicans are 6.5-point home favorites. I personally am a little bit leery of this game just because it's a 238.5 total, but the Pelicans aren't the fastest playing team and they are a top 10 defense. So I'm wondering if they kind of mess with us here and, just make this game not as appealing as it initially looks. Having said that, Utah and the Pels both have very interesting pieces. Starting with the Jazz, does anybody stand out for you?
Yeah, like everyone, because they're all pretty cheap. They have 3 guys, Olynyk, Fontecchio, and Dunn, that are under 4K that play real minutes. Dunn is questionable, so keep an eye on that. Maybe like Keontae George or Jordan Clarkson perhaps get in the starting lineup if he's out. But Sexton is the one that stands out the most. Like, he's too cheap for what he's doing in a starting role. He's been a monster. Usage has been there. He just kind of does everything. Love him. I'm not really concerned about the blowout. Utah's been playing very well in general lately. I think they can hang in this game. So Markkanen for 8-1. Happy to play that. You can really make a case for pretty much anyone. I'm not super stoked about John Collins, for example. Kessler can easily eat into him off the bench, assuming Collins is still starting. But pretty much everyone else is in play. I wouldn't cram all the Utah value guys together. I would probably set a max one of the Dunn, Fontecchio, Olynyk group, for example, just because cramming them all in and paying up for studs could be a popular path. Everyone on this team is projecting for double-digit ownership, so it's not really a contrarian option, but Clarkson, Sexton, Markkanen all stand out as really good individual plays. Yeah,
they do look pretty appealing here. I mean, Markkanen at 8-1 is too cheap. That's just facts, and he's only going to be 60% ownership owned. Sexton looks fine, and the price is good, but if his ownership's going to be creeping up to 30%, that might be a fade for me, just because he is so scoring dependent typically, and it's not a good matchup. I do like Fontecchio for savings. 3.6 for a guy who's going to start and get close to 30 minutes. That's pretty appealing. He's not the most reliable. I mean, and obviously speaking of scoring dependent, but that 3.6, he's definitely on the table for me. And Keontae George, if he slips into the starting lineup at 4-3, he is another interesting value. That's assuming if Chris Dunn is out. And I'm with you, Clarkson, these other guys, they're fine, but none of them really stand out to me. On the Pelicans side, let's see here. Zion, I still have Utah clicked. Zion stands out as the top option based off of projections alone, but who are you liking the most?
Again, DK pricing seems to have gotten really soft. McCollum 7K, Ingram 7.6, all stand out. It's kind of like the big 3 on Utah, the big 3 on New Orleans are all interesting. Wouldn't play any more than one of them together. So max one here as well for this team, IMO. Larry Nance is another interesting kind of value center off the bench. projected for 20 minutes, has a path to more, like we've seen. He could play Joe Val off the court. Maybe Utah plays small and Nance plays a few more minutes to match that. So if like Jericho Sims gets steamed a little with ownership, then I'm happy to pivot to Nance, who can easily play the same amount, if not more, for a potential ownership discount. And that's really it. Valanciunas with Nance in there has a low minutes floor. These other wings, Murphy, Marshall, Hawkins, Jones, kind of cannibalize each other. So it's really just the big three and Larry Nance Jr.
Yeah, I'm not going to take the Larry Nance dive, but I understand the logic. And because of that, I'm not going to play JV either. But the big three look great. Really nice prices, good projections. Zion's probably the safest play. He's got the best raw points projection. He's going to be owned. He's coming in at 24% at the moment. And if you look at some of these numbers here for the Jazz, they are, they allow, or the 23rd in points allowed per game, 118 per game. They are 29th in fast break points allowed per game, and they are 19th in points allowed inside the paint per game. So pretty good matchup for Zion, who loves to attack inside. But Ingram might be the guy that stands out the most here. He's the most expensive of this big three trio. He's getting the same nice matchup that they're all getting, and his projected ownership is 3%. So if Brandon Ingram is going to be unowned, and people are going to be splitting ownership between Zion and McCollum, give me Brandon Ingram. All right, last game of the night, we got a LA showdown with the Clippers hosting the Lakers. LeBron is out, as we all know. For once, his questionable tag proved true. Weirdly, even with Anthony Davis supposedly coming in, by the way, he has like 2 sore Achilles. Yeah, definitely keep playing with the sore Achilles.
Like, what AD is a warrior, man. He never misses games.
He also never exits them prematurely. Still, with him in, I'm a little surprised to see them as 9-point dogs when they're still in LA. It's a little bit strange. But yeah,
Clippers are good.
Well, yeah, I know that's true. But even so, 9, it just feels a bit steep. But yeah, starting with Lakers here. Who are you liking here?
Yeah, I mean, Rui started the last game. They have Prince back, but Rui should start in place of LeBron. That's not for certain yet, but that's what's being projected right now. Sub 4K Rui, easy, very good value in all formats. Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, big usage boost. LeBron, a lot of playmaking for them. Both started the last game as well. Should start again tonight. Reeves does not typically do well against long defenders, and the Clippers have a lot of those, but he's cheap enough to where I'm willing to bite the bullet on that, even at, a third of the field playing him. AD probably will be more owned than his current projection indicates as well, I would think, for 10-2. Like we always say, he's not as expensive as he should be, especially for a no LeBron game. Clippers aren't the most dominant paint protecting defense either. So good spot for AD. And I guess you can make a case for guys like Wood and Prince as values off the bench. I guess Prince might start, but limited usage for him. Very low floor for both of them, but kind of in play as short slate punts, I think.
Prince, and I'm seeing Christian Wood pop a little bit here, but I don't like that. But Rui and Prince stand out as really good values. Right now, Prince isn't looking like he's going to be owned, which could be a nice little leverage play against Rui's ownership and maybe just fade Rui. Having said that, Rui is a good play. I like Rui a lot. And they're both really cheap. So you could use both of them if you really wanted to, if you want to save some cash. D'Lo and Reeves look awesome. Good note on Reeves against longer defenders. I mean, if he's going to be that chalky and that's something that scares you, that's something to consider. And you could fade him and he just has a meh game and, that helps you get a little bit of an edge. Yeah, Brow's projected ownership 12%. I don't see that sticking. Although, I mean, SGA is like the same price and Jokic is 1,000 more. So maybe, just maybe, with the 9-point spread, people just decide to go with SGA or pay up for Jokic. So if his ownership stays that low or anywhere close to it, Brow's a smash play at the ownership to me. His projection looks great. His role is massive with LeBron out. So yeah, for me, I'm probably going Brow and D'Lo as part of my core, and the first guy out would probably actually be Reeves, even though he is still a good play, but he's probably the first guy I'm not looking at. All right,
I think you can go like a min 2 Lakers. This is probably a situation where you're playing at least 2 of them in every lineup, and a max of 4, I would say, is viable.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going 2 of the top mid-range to top guys. I'm going either Anthony Davis and D'Lo or Anthony Davis and Reeves, and then I'm getting one of the values. So I'm probably going 3. And I agree 100%. You can go 4. You could go the top 3 dudes easily and then go value, or any other combo, but that'd probably be the first one I do if you're going to go 3 or 4. On the other side are the Clippers. Obviously, everybody's healthy, except for Zubac is out. But as far as their superstars go, they're healthy. Zubac being out isn't nothing. That creates a little bit of value for their centers. Mason Plumlee looks a little interesting as a punt. Who are you liking here?
Yeah, I think Plumlee's in play because they will need size against AD. I guess foul trouble is a concern there, of course, but 4-2, he's like one of the million of centers in the 4K and under range on the slate that are in play. Don't expect Plumlee to be that popular among them, so I'm happy to get to him kind of as a differentiator, decent run back, playing a lot of Lakers on the other side. Same case for Harden at the top. I think he's probably the most interesting of the 3 stars on a point per dollar basis. But all look good. Like, they're not even 9K. The 8.6 for Kawhi is the most we're paying for any of them. You can easily get to any of these guys, I think. Kawhi would probably be next on that list for me. And I think there's a decent chance the game could go small-ish. Like, the Clippers aren't afraid to play small even against size. So 6K for Russ with the potential to play upwards of 30 minutes. He's still good per minute, even if he's not peak Russ anymore. On a small slate in a tournament, I'm happy to shoot for upside like that.
Yeah. Speaking to the big 3 for the Clippers, I mean, yeah, their ownership is split between them. So it's pretty likely you're looking at nobody maxing out over 15% owned. So these are pretty interesting contrarian options to close out the slate, which isn't something we can always say about the hammer game. All right, that does it for the team or game-by-game breakdown. Let's real quick look at the projected ownership. Actually, I'm going to refresh it real quick just so we can get updated information if it's there. Let's see. If it doesn't take a million years to load. I'll get rid of this. So I'm going to scroll my top plays of the slate down here. And then we'll look at ownership. All right, so D'Lo is coming in as the chalkiest play right now. And the reason why I have Austin Reeves as part of my starting core there was because that's what it was before, and it stuck there. So if D'Lo is going to be the ultimate chalk, I do think kind of leveraging Reeves against him could be interesting. The only thing is, it might be kind of a waste of time because Reeves is also coming in at crazy ownership, the second most owned player on the slate. So on any other slate, that might be a good strategy. On this slate, I'm starting to think maybe it's not totally necessary. That said, both those guys are in play. I don't think you have to fade those guys. Like I said earlier, Colin Sexton, because he's usually very scoring dependent, and because it's not really that good of a matchup on the road, he might be the first guy I fade here. And by the way, Austin Reeves, $400 less, D'Lo, $300 more. So those could be the 2 guards you get, or even Jalen is $500 more. And those are the guys you can target and then fade Sexton and see if you can get some value somewhere else. And then nobody else really stands out as like an auto fade based off of this ownership. I think for me, it's Sexton. Who are you thinking for, as far as ownership goes, is your number 1 fade on this slate?
I don't really think any of the chalk looks bad. I guess of the upper echelon ownership guys, it would be Claxton for me, just because center has so much value at the low end, and I like Chet kind of in the same price range as Claxton here. Yeah, so it's not a bad matchup for Claxton, but I think there's so much to like at center. I don't really see the need to play Claxton if he's going to be owned by a third of the field or a quarter of the field.
Yeah, I'm not far behind you on Claxton. I'm not racing to go after him. I think that does it for us. We broke down all the games here, and for the most part, I think we're in unison on Brow being a good spend. Do you have a top play that you or want to stand firmly behind, like kind of like on the flip side of the fade? Is there one guy you absolutely are playing in almost all your lineups?
Well, it's Rui probably. Of the 4 players I'm getting the most, or of the 5 players I get the most exposure to, 4 are Lakers, and the 5th is Precious. So I suppose Precious would be my flag plant as of now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. My flag plant is going to be Brow. I'm going to start it with Anthony Davis, assuming there's tiny little Achilles hold up, and then Precious. I don't care if he doesn't start. I actually envision him playing way more than Jericho ends up playing, and finding success.
And I hope people get scared away. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I think people will have confidence because they look at the game log and see Precious did well in the last one. But I'm hoping that him not starting will make him reasonably contrarian. So,
well, yeah. The other thing is, it's not like there's no other value. It's just some of the value doesn't feel very good. Rui is there. Mason Plumlee is there. There are other guys to look at. There's the Jazz guys we talked about. So there is value. So as we refresh and get closer to lock, that will be something that dictates things for me, exactly what the ownership projections look like, and obviously if any other news comes out. All right. That does it for us. Hopefully we help you in some way. Obviously, keep an eye on the news and any different changes, the final starting lineups and all that. And give us a like and a subscribe if we help you out. Good luck.